critical or relevant right now.
All right, sounds good. Okay. Are
We are, yeah. We can
Okay.
hold on.
All right.
And
Here we go.
3, 2, 1. Live from the 6th subfloor basement of the Guys, Games, and Beer Tower. It's America's worst gaming podcast ever. Guys, Games, and Beer!
No!
Man, small crew today, but mighty.
Yes, we're small but fierce.
Mighty. Talking about mighty, let's talk about this rash I have got right here. I want to show you.
Ooh, that is mighty ugly, Rob.
Oh, I know. It's mighty.
Dang. I would get that. I
I
would get that
get
checked.
that checked out.
Actually, you guys might want to because you were at the party this weekend.
No, I wasn't.
No, he wasn't. We were though. Yeah, maybe we'll get.
You're safe. Maybe.
Me, not so much. All right. So I suppose we should probably break into beer court, Rob.
Yes, we absolutely should break
Because
the beer court.
I am dying
What
to
a
test
surprise!
this out.
We do it every week, and yet I didn't have the pre-roll ready for it. Ba-da-bum.
Ba-da-bum-bum. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum-bum-ba-da-da.
Unprepared.
Well, we're kind of prepared. We actually have a show beer for tonight. We've got something from our friends over at Ale Asylum again. We've done a few beer of their beers before, and overall, what the hell is that? Overall, we always find them pleasant. So tonight we're doing their Oktoberfest, which I kind of like what they've called it, Octillion, and the art alone is worth buying the bottle. You could have waited for the rest of us. I was going to give this nice description, but no, you had to start drinking it right away. Now wait, now hold it. Just hold
no, you can't do this.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
Sorry.
So
I just got over.
It's only a 6% APV. Needless to say, it's an Oktoberfest, so it's a Marzen lager. It boasts of an intricate blend of American and European malt for a light amber color and soft bready malt flavor. You know, sometimes bready's not good. Just gonna put it out there. With a crisp finish and no residual sweetness. Octillion is available through August through October 2018. Both packaged and on tap throughout Wisconsin and Illinois. So if you don't live in Wisconsin and Illinois, I'm sorry, you're not going to get to enjoy this amazing beer. Let's see if it's as amazing as their description.
We are all like drinking while you're talking. All the messages are coming in already.
I'm not in the chat room yet. I got to jump in the chat room.
I can't get in the chat room. It kills my phone too quickly. I need to get a laptop or something.
Yeah, you really should bring one to the show. Just to put it out there.
That would mean that I'd actually have to have money to afford one.
Oh, that's okay. I understand that one too. Okay, this is I'd say this is a really good Oktoberfest.
Yeah, you know what?
So this is what an Oktoberfest is supposed to taste like.
Correct.
Okay, because
like October.
It's a Marzen style lager.
Okay, because I was like, I took that first sip and was like, this is interesting. I don't know how to describe this beer.
No, I would say this is quite good.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Because I just went.
All right.
I have no words.
But this is Ale Asylum, and again, I can't remember if we've ever had anything we really didn't like. Let me go back to the list here and see if I can't think of anything off the top of my head from Ale Asylum that we haven't really. Maybe it wasn't the best of that particular style beer we've had, but everything's pretty solid from them.
Yeah, this is good.
I
like it.
This is a solid beer, again, as I'm almost through half the bottle.
All right, let's put this to a vote because I'm going to finish this.
All right, yeah, I was just going to say I'm making a really good dent in this really quick.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was an easy one. 3 thumbs up on that one. That's a definite, that one's a winner.
I was about to say it.
So, sorry, but if you don't live in Wisconsin, Illinois, sucks to be you. We get to have an Ale Asylum. And again, Ale Asylum's out of Madison, Wisconsin. They're really a very good brewer. If you get a chance and you get a chance to pick up any of their beers, I can strongly suggest it.
Yeah, I never had a bad one.
No.
And on the charge of driving while having a yeast infection, I find you guilty and sentence you to
drinking!
All right. Well, that was horrendous. Good thing we have a guest on today, huh, Tom?
Good thing, Rob. Who's our guest tonight, Rob?
Well, who is our guest today?
Is that my cue?
That was your cue.
My cue. All right. Hey, I'm paying attention.
Keep on it, Joe.
My name is Joe Cain. I'm currently functioning as a game producer and game designer. I've been kind of wearing both hats that way for about the last 15 years or so. And I met you guys at the game show in April. The
Midwest Gaming Classic.
Yes, thank you. Stopped by the booth, and you had a sign out like, "Hey, if you're a game developer, come on in." And so I went in, and we chatted, and realized that we have some common history in our backgrounds, types of games that we like, and what we're all about. So, and I like beer. I'm not a humongous beer drinker, but I do like a good ale. So I actually have a couple selections here myself. I don't know which one I should go for though.
That's always a tough call. So, okay, so given that you like a good ale, what's your favorite ale?
So I have my favorite ale in front of me. It's the Allagash Curio. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
No, I am.
No, but better write that one down.
I am going to.
Yeah, Curieux. So it's ale aged in oak bourbon barrels.
Ooh, I've had one of
And
those.
it is 11% by volume, which
Bourbon barrel.
is pretty tasty. And this is a go-to beer for me. I came across this one maybe 5-6 years ago and liked it instantaneously. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to find, and it's not cheap, but it's excellent.
All right. Well, I see now. I'm already looking up it's a small brewery too, isn't it?
I believe I'm not really sure how big they are. I mean, I've seen Allagash around, but not. I wouldn't say it's like something I see, in the store all the time. You kind of got to know where to look for it, I guess.
All right. Well, that is what I'm doing as we speak. Needless to say. Okay. So Allegheny. Oh, is out of Portland. Okay. I'll have to see if they export it all. All right. So the real reason we brought you on the show is because you have been in the business for quite a while.
That's correct.
I mean, and when I say in the business, I mean video game development, video game design, video game testing. I mean, you go back quite a ways with this. So let's start by talking about some of your experiences. I mean, somebody's had this kind of longevity in the industry and worked on so many projects. Let's start with so you've seen the changes in the market since the early 90s.
Correct.
What kind of changes do you see that you like and don't like that are currently happening in the video game field?
Where do we start?
Usually from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and background-wise too. Like, I mean, started out as a game player. As a kid, grew up in the late 70s, early 80s was kind of like the pinball to arcade transition, and then followed that into the home with Nintendo. First Atari, then Nintendo, then you name it. But as far as for me, like the evolution of the industry, obviously, pricing and ownership is something that I think is a really big change. You've got a lot of digital platforms, and unlike when you could buy a cartridge and you'd have that cartridge for the rest of your life, or as long as it lasted, or didn't break, the connectors or something. That ROM, you would plug it in and you could always play that game, and it wouldn't change. And you had it forever. You'd spend the money and you'd have it forever. Now you buy something, digitally, and you're sort of at the mercy of the rights holder. Obviously big platforms like Steam aren't going anywhere, or they don't seem to be going anywhere. I've worked for EA in the past. They have Origin. And it's the same kind of deal. You buy your game online, or even if you buy a physical copy, all the DRM that's out there that you have to deal with, it can be problematic. And so, for me, I'm a collector myself, and I'm not like a crazy collector where I have like a full complete set of a bunch of different things. But for me, I have a bunch of carts that I bought. Super Nintendo. Intellivision was my first game system. So I keep a lot of the stuff that I bought, old PC. I had Apple when I grew up, so I have all my Apple IIe and Apple II GS stuff. And then I collect arcade games as well. I have a reasonable collection, a lot of cocktail tables actually right now. But I like, for me, the experience is in that tangible item. And without that, that's kind of what I feel is, I don't have as much motivation. I got older, I had kids, so sometimes it's difficult to find time to play. But I don't have the motivation to collect stuff like I used to, because it's not the same thing as having that physical item that you've attached, a memory to, really.
We talk about this. We've gone over this topic quite a lot on the show. So, like you said, you're not a hardcore collector. You get games that you want to play, things like that. The problem is, 20 years from now, will the retro market still exist? Okay, Ryan, hold on a second. Some of our we're talking.
We have staff calling in from.
We have
Metallica
staff calling because they want to talk to you.
concert.
They're at a Metallica concert, but they wanted to talk to you as well. But
Whilst you fix that, I'm going to pop my beer here.
you pop your beer there. All right, gentlemen, can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna put you on the
You
thing.
can't really hear him.
Yeah, it's not
Okay, we should.
it's not gonna work like this, guys. Or if you want to try to Skype in on a multi-call, we'll try that.
Skype in.
Okay.
Skype in.
Okay.
Is that somebody on a phone?
Yeah, they called it on the damn phone instead of Skype. Okay,
Not the
so
first
but-
time either.
But going back into that,
Yeah.
so my concern now is, so like you, I came up in the gaming world through the 70s and 80s, that we won't be able to get this content. And you're right. You can say, well, Steam is big, and they're probably not going anywhere. But I already have games that technically wouldn't be playable anymore because the network that they ran on stopped running. Dreamcast had a lot of networked games that are no longer supported. There's some people setting up private servers, but it's not going to be like that when the new games with this next generation, because you're right. It's not just the servers that you need. It's also the servers and the media, which you're not getting anymore. Whether it was a ROM, a CD, whatever, a disc.
I mean, I know that there's websites like, I'm sorry, not websites. I don't know if it's actually run off the website, or if it's a client that you download, like Good Old Games. I know they have, a decent amount of older software that you can run, and I'm not sure how they're handling any of the, the server content or online stuff. There was actually a brief period of time where I think a company, this was happening more with like Facebook games, but they were basically picking up old Facebook games that had died and sort of like restarting them, and remaintaining all the old content and adding new content. But it's funny because I spoke to my wife about this. My wife's a gamer as well. She's really good actually at a lot of stuff. But she played a lot of World of Warcraft with her family, and that was one of those games that I never really got that into. I did play a little bit of what was the Sony one? EverQuest.
Oh.
I played a little EverQuest, and what I realized pretty soon after I started playing was like, wow, I'm going to put a bunch of time and investment into this. I have to keep paying. First of all, I have to pay you for the box. Then I have to pay you for my subscription. And then when I decide I'm done and I don't want to pay the subscription anymore, pretty much I'm going to lose all this stuff. And so to me, it was like, wow, that's a lot of money to be spending for sort of a temporal experience. And whenever they shut this down, I'm not going to be able to keep this. So I didn't have that incentive. For her, she looked at it more like, well, I got this experience out of it, right? Like she's playing with her friends, she's playing with her family. So to her, it was worth that. It was worth that experience, like to pay the money to do all those things to have the experience. And I can totally get that, right? But coming from, we do have similar backgrounds too. In that she's only like a year and a half younger than I am, so she grew up on Nintendo and everything too. But I don't know. For me, I guess I attached myself more to that experience by myself because I grew up, kind of a not only child. My brother's 12 years older than I am, so I didn't have a peer in my house to play games with. I had my friends, and so but those experiences became very local to me, and that was the thing that I wanted to try to maintain, and to not have that. There's a part of me that just looks at that like, wow, what's the value here? Because I'm not getting that same experience. I don't get to keep that experience.
Right. Well, that's and again, I understand convenience and to some extent maybe a reduced cost by not producing the media.
I don't know if that's even.
Not all games. Not all games.
It's hard to tell anymore because in the 80s.
What does the disc cost? The disc cost. I mean, they pretty much ate away all the cost of packaging a game because you don't get anything in the package anymore. Even if you get a disc, that's probably it. It's like go online to get the manual.
You don't even get a disc in the new ones.
You know, it's just a box with a cover and a disc.
There's not even a disc in the new ones. Not even a disc. It's completely empty.
Unless you
actually
get like
here's the code. Go
unless you actually get like actual ones from like I've gone to GameStop and I've seen some that actually say like
no disc inside.
No disc inside, or
right.
This game does not come with a disc, and I'm going.
What the hell?
Then why are you putting out?
I mean,
for the actual box.
Yeah,
I've
already buying a box.
I've already
just give me a paper thing that just says, pick up the game, take this to the register, and I'm like, okay, fine.
It's nice to have a physical thing. Now I realize that the cost of producing games in general has gone up, but.
You're not even getting the full game. There's DLC
the cost of pressing a disc is like nothing now.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing. At least give something. It really. I agree with you. I think a lot of it's to do with the DRM and retaining rights to it. Which at some point in the past, we decided that instead of buying games, we're going to lease them. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I back. So many indie games and do all these Kickstarters and stuff. I like the fact that they send me a copy of the game, sometimes even on a USB drive or whatever, and I own it. They don't have a server, they don't have anything. But I realize not all games can be like that. I understand that, but there's got to be like a sane middle ground for this because they've gone too far.
And this is where I love that my games of choice are board games.
Well, that's
all right. That's it. Nope.
Okay, so you're about to say
there's a fine line to be walked. I mean, I get that. So I've had this experience a little bit with some friends of mine who have tried to work on a couple of projects. I had one buddy who was working on that. There was like a field programmable ROM system that was coming out. The guy got all the molds for the Jaguar, and they had a Kickstarter. They were actually going to build this thing as as a viable new platform where you would buy cartridges.
We had them on. We had them on. 2 years
Oh,
ago.
you did? Okay, yeah. Well, unfortunately that whole thing fell apart. I don't really know the ins and outs exactly of what happened. I know from my friend that he was like, hey, I thought it was gonna be one thing, it turned into something else. But the takeaway from that was that to me that made a lot of sense, right? But then you had all these people complaining about, oh, what happens if I need to update I need to patch it or whatever. It's like a lot of this goes back, and I can tie this back to my experience as a tester for Sega. When we were building games, we tested the hell out of those things because we knew that if we minted that ROM and we sent that card out, it couldn't have flaws that would then to have somebody come back and say, oh, I'm going to return this game because this game's buggy and crappy, right? That was our job. Our job was to make sure, and we would spend, literally, as a team, thousands of hours. We would invest thousands of hours in testing these games. It didn't just happen overnight. I mean, we'd get a build. The game would probably be in test for 2 or 3 months. Sometimes less, sometimes more, just depending on how big the project was. But we couldn't release a game unless you put 200 hours of testing into that build, and then you had to write bugs and bug reports, and people were watching these games after they went out, hoping and praying like tested their job, right? But that was what we had to do, and we knew we didn't have any other way of dealing with that. Now you've got people where it's like, oh, well, this game can go out and be crappy and buggy, and we'll just do an update. We'll send out a patch. Like that solves that problem for you. And so the quality, I think it's a part of the process, or at least for me, it's hard to separate out that part of the process because the groups that I've been working with more recently, and the folks I'm contracting for currently, it's a huge part of our we spend real effort in trying to make sure that things come out the right way because we don't want to have to patch stuff. We don't want to have to put people through that where they're buying new content and then they go, hey, this thing doesn't work. Well, how likely are you to get them to want to try that again? When if it's a every once in a while thing, sure, but if it starts to become a pattern, then people are going to be like, yeah, these guys suck. They can't they can't give us content that's not
Unless you're
breaking all the time.
Electronic Arts, but
Yeah.
we'll go off on that.
Well, yeah, just say, that you say that, but boy, I'll tell you, there are so many games you buy, and the very first thing that happens when you try to start it up on your system is updating.
Yes.
Updating.
Oh, God,
I
yeah.
mean, literally, so...
That's super irritating.
Oh,
and
God.
as a consumer, I wouldn't want to do that. Obviously, there's some... You're kind of a captive audience at that point, right? You've spent the money, and you're used to it now. You've got to basically have a connection to get to any of this stuff anymore. So, I think people are accustomed to it, but it certainly wasn't an easy pill to swallow, right? And it caused a lot of problems for a lot of different companies to have to, manage that all the time. It's a huge drain on resources that you could be using to, spend to improve the game rather than, patch all the holes in the ship.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think it also puts a bad foot forward when you get a game. I remember we switched. Oh, what a mistake this was. We switched from PS4 to Xbox, back to Xbox in this time frame because that Halo Master Chief Collection came out, and we used to play it to death on the 360. Tom too. It was one of our It was one of our go-to games. We'd play it all the time. That game came out so busted you could not even play it. I don't think I ever went back to it. I heard they fixed all the net code, but I wouldn't come back. It was too late.
Yeah. And that's the problem. And again...
They killed that thing.
Oh, sorry.
No, go
The
ahead.
thing I hate is, just like you were saying, I bought a game, $60 game, put it in the machine, and it goes, okay, installing. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Needs to install some stuff. Took an hour and a half. I click on it to start, opening stuff, starts going, get to what I think is heading towards the first screen, updating. That updated for 3 hours.
That is not uncommon. No, but that's not uncommon. That's the problem.
The thing is, I found out, wasn't it that is happening with so many games now that is what's really pissing me off? You're not even getting a full game because they want you to buy like the season pass or this or that because they're putting out the rest of the game as DLC.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and by the way, the first rule of loading screens is you can only have one loading screen. If you break that rule, I'm out.
All right,
Don't give you the rope-a-dope like, oh, waiting, yeah, this is cool, like loading, and then you get to another screen, oh, loading again? No, forget it.
At least Namco would have you play like Galaga for a few seconds while it's loading on the PlayStation.
It's funny, they, I don't know if you guys remember, they actually patented that idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you don't see much of it.
They patented that because that was such a novel idea at the time. They decided they would sort of patent it.
I'm almost sure.
I've seen other games do something similar, but I think
because the Commodore 64, I'm pretty sure would have some loading games every once in a while. Didn't they have Pong? Remember?
You gave me a loading game in there, and you have just extended how long I will allow this loading and whatever to happen.
Yeah, no. There have been a few games that have done that, but again, it was.
Yeah, Namco was really the king of it, though.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they'll throw up an achievement for waiting 5 hours for the game to load.
Look, if you got that achievement, I would level up immediately for that kind of stuff. All right, so that really does kind of bring up some of where things have gone and where they've kind of gone off the rail as far as we're all concerned. Let's go way back to the beginning for you. You've been doing game development forever. Pardon the
close to forever, yeah.
Yeah,
more than half of my life.
You're getting there. You are definitely getting there. What was the very first game you worked on?
So I remember the first game I tested, first day at Sega, was a game called X Mutants. And it took me about 45 minutes to find a crash bug, and I kind of realized this was my calling. But I got really lucky. What happened was, growing up, grew up in a small town in California, in the East Bay called Antioch. Pretty sleepy little, quiet community. and had some friends that were into computers, so we kind of all geeked out together. This was, clearly at a time when being a nerd was being a nerd, right? Like meant like not, not like not positive popular nerddom, but like real like leave us alone nerddom. So we got kind of into computers. We played, we were like pseudo hackers, right? So we'd play like Bard's Tale, and we'd like sector edit our characters so that we could like equip wizards with diamond plate and all this goofy shit. And so for me, I kind of had an inkling of an idea that I wanted to work on games. I just didn't really. It didn't ever dawn to me. It was funny how like at 19, like 18 years old, I was like, oh, you know what? There's companies that make video games. Maybe I should apply to them. So it was kind of like this funny thing where I started looking stuff up. I kind of was doing like a summer job after I got out of school and working at a computer store, but I really wanted to do something different, and I started looking around where were the game companies, in the area. And there was like Namco was in San Jose, Ocean I think was another company that was like down in that area, and Sony wasn't even in games yet. But I found Sega, and they were in Redwood City, which was like 60, 70 miles away from my house, which was quite a drive. But the shift I ended up getting on was like afternoon shift, so like I didn't have to worry about traffic. I was young, it was kind of like a easy thing to fall into, and as it turned out, I applied directly to Sega. I applied to the temp company, the temp agency that was hiring for Sega, and a buddy of mine ended up working at Sega through a connection with his job, which wasn't even called IT at the time. It was like MIS was the initials back then. And he was like, hey, Sega's hiring testers. So I had like 3 ins, and I managed to get an interview. And at the time, to be honest with you, like I'd love to sit here and say like they saw all my potential and were like, yeah, Joe, come join us. But they were really looking for warm bodies, because at a certain point, like I said, you've got to get hours on these games. You have to log hundreds of hours of tests on these games. You need bodies to do that. You can't just, nowadays there's a lot more automated testing that can do some of these things for you, but back then that didn't exist at all. So, I kind of came in, and they basically were like, hey, come on in, do a little interview. Yeah, you seem like you can handle this. You're in the games, cool. Come in. First day, they sort of, they give you a little desk area, and you've got a TV set and a VCR. They hand you a game, and they're like, sometimes they'd hand you a test report, but they're like, here you go, play the game, see what you can find. And so it was kind of this weird like sandbox to be thrown into, because it was like, okay, well, I like to play games. And I remember like once I knew I was going to get the job, I started to go back to some games I had owned to see if I could find a bug. And I think I was playing like Castlevania, like Super Castlevania 4 on Super Nintendo, and I found a weird thing you could do with the chain whip if you let it flail, and like attached it to like one of the hooks, but you were above the hook. You kind of levitate in a weird way. So I was like, okay, I think I can figure this out. And I played games like my whole life, so it felt very natural. Of all the jobs I've ever done in my life, testing felt the most natural to me, at least as far as here's a game, go figure out a way to break it. That kind of came easy. But that job in modern industry almost doesn't exist anymore. I mean, they do, obviously there are test departments and there are test groups, but a lot of testing gets done overseas. So for somebody to start now, to find their way, if you were to try to wend your way into the industry now, like testing was like it was like the entry level, right? We had some people who tested that were programmers, we had some people who tested who were artists. You couldn't necessarily get those jobs right away, so they come in, they test, they get to know some people, they say, hey, I can do these other things, they get an opportunity to do that, and they could advance that way. Game design was something I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do that for a long time. I just didn't know the sort of, what was the process. And so one of the things that was cool about working for Sega was we got exposed to the process. We got exposed to the producers. So one of my good friends in the industry is Ed Annunziata. He was the guy who did Echo the Dolphin. He did the X-Men game for Genesis. He did the Spider-Man game for Genesis. He went on to do a bunch of other titles. But I got to meet Ed through Sega. And he was one of the producers who really appreciated, the fact that, testers are in front of these games all the time. And we kind of really had the best vision of like what's actually good about this game, what's actually bad about this game. And he appreciated that. So I always took that to heart, that he was like inclusive of us. Like some people saw testers as the annoyance, because it was like, you're making my game not ship. Right? Like you're costing us money because now we can't sell this game, rather than like you're helping us actually put out quality product. But Ed saw it differently, and there was a couple other producers there that I got the same impression of. Really, honestly, almost everybody at Sega was great, and it was a really, often people that I used to work with, we all look back on that as kind of like a magical time, because that was like, it was just a weird, like, just the confluence of events, the time, the space, the need, how we went about doing things, the fact that we were like within the same 4 walls 16 hours a day sometimes with each other, and didn't manage not to kill each other in the process. Like, I have friends that I made 25 years ago from that I still have today. So I consider myself really lucky. Another friend of mine who I was friends with before either of us got a job at Sega, who he did also get a job at Sega, we were talking recently, and he's like, man, I feel really lucky. And I'm like, I feel the same way, because we kind of fell into it. We knew what we wanted to do, but we kind of still fell into it and managed to make careers out of it. I started testing games, was a year removed from high school. I was 19, and I'm 45 now, and I've made my living on video games that entire time. So I do consider, and I've done testing, I've written strategy guides, done game production, game design. Sometimes I even make sound effects that are terrible.
You got to.
But I've had a chance to kind of do a little bit of everything. I worked in casino games, I've worked in casual games, I've worked in hardcore games, I've worked for a company. I've shut down companies. Not really.
I was just gonna say that's not something you want to brag about, is shutting down a company.
I've been there more than once when the doors got closed at a company. But I made some really, really cool connections. Probably the one that is kind of the weirdest one was, as a kid I played, again, an arcade all the time, right? And Crystal Castle is one of my favorite games.
Oh yeah.
And I've actually owned the Upright, and I still own a cocktail of that. But I ended up, when I worked for Atari, we got a phone call from the original designer of Crystal Castles. His name is Franz Lanzinger. He's now a very good friend of mine. But I had never met this guy before, and I got on the phone with him. I'm like 23 years old, and I somehow get this call routed to my phone as one of the 2 producers that were still at Atari at the time, and he wanted to get the rights back to Crystal Castles and make a new game. Now, we talked about rights a little bit. Atari, none of these companies are ever giving away their IP. It's never happening. But he wanted to get the IP back, and they wouldn't give it to him. But I, established a relationship with him, and then like a year later, he was working on another game that was kind of like his way of doing Crystal Castles without calling it Crystal Castles. He was like, hey, we could use some help. And I was like, wow, this would be awesome. So I got a chance to work for this guy who, 15 years prior I didn't even know was the guy who was programming this game that I was playing in the arcades and loving. And, so I've managed to kind of be, again, very fortunate to cross paths with these people that, are really, have made these things that are amazing and part of my childhood growing up. And then I actually got a chance to, build games with them as well. So it's kind of a small world, and just always end up looking back on it and just kind of feeling very fortunate that that's how things turned out for me.
Yeah, and talking about Sega in those days, I mean, first of all, they were fairly prolific, so they were turning out a bunch of games at that time.
Oh God, yeah.
And some good quality titles to boot. I mean, considering how many they were turning out, they really did a good job. I lament over Sega. It's
Come on, man, Atari really versus Atari?
I lament over Sega far more than
Really,
I lament over
cry
Atari.
about Atari all the time.
No.
I cried this morning.
Sega had so much more potential than Atari.
You might be in a little bit of a minority there, though, because I mean, I see people. Although I don't know, I guess it's kind of 50-50, because I always see people in like these Sega. I got invited to a couple of Sega, classic game forums, and one of them Sega, and people are like constantly sending out these things like, well, what if they made a new Sega console tomorrow? And I'm like, dude, it's not happening. Like, but I get the desire, right? Like, there's so much of that nostalgia for that thing that was that formative
Oh, yeah, the
thing in your
Dreamcast
life
too,
that you focused on and spent so much of your
years.
time and energy and effort and money and everything you put into it. I get it. Like people want to have that experience back. Right?
Well, and that's why the new Atari has done fairly well on the Kickstarter.
Kickstarter did great.
Yeah, its Kickstarter did great because you do invest a lot of time in it, and you'd like to see that particular line continue.
Yeah.
Atari's
a tough one. It changed hands so many times. It's all of the IP, right? Like, so I'll give you guys a kind of. I was thinking about this the other day. So when I worked for Atari, I was only there for 4 months, and it was right at the end of the Jaguar life cycle. They actually had already said they were going to be making the Jaguar 2. They had like a prototype chip together. They were like convinced like this is going to work. But they had gone 5 years without turning any profits, so they were just bleeding money everywhere. And I remember I was in this meeting, and they wanted to make it. They ended up making this game, but it was the Atari carts. And yeah. I was in the meeting. Sam Trammell is right in front of me, and with a straight face says they're going to call it Atari carts. And I'm looking around the room. I'm like 22 years old, but I'm looking around. I'm like, you guys know there's a game called Mario Kart, right? With a K. With a K.
I swear to God, I just got Atari carts in the mail today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, literally just opened one up.
Nice.
But so first of all, like I'm like, and so eventually I was like, all right, forget it. Nobody's gonna listen to me. Like whatever. But what's funny about that game is that there was a Bentley Bear in there, and so Atari's got all this IP that's like, and I don't even know if they were, because at the time we had also been discussing about making a new Crystal Castles game as well, and so I don't know if that was part and parcel with that idea, or if I don't even really know who the developer of that game was off the top of my head. But what I guess what I'm getting at is you've got all this rich IP, right? And what really sucks about it is for a company like Atari, if somebody comes in and takes over Atari's IP, do they really value it the same way that they would if that company had never changed hands? Like, do people who work there really understand how much what a treasure trove they're sitting on, and how to utilize it, and how to make that connect with people? Because you've got groups that own the rights to stuff, and they only really go after you if you use it, but they're not doing anything with it.
I'm just sitting on it.
You're right,
and
because
they're just hoarding it. It's like, okay, and then you come after, you'll see like, oh, so and so lawsuit against this person for infringing on the these IP rights, but it's like that's like camping like a web domain or something. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense because they're not doing anything with it. Let somebody who cares actually do something. Unless you're going to, if you're going to, fine.
The Atari we're dealing with now is it's a ground zero type of Atari. It's not. I don't think the president of the company is. He's basically given up on patent trolling lately. That doesn't seem to be his thing, but they're learning everything the hard way, it seems. You know what I mean? They've got a team that has experience, but not necessarily what they need to have experience in. It's kind of a it's a sad situation.
If you're dealing with something that's that nostalgic, you probably should know what you're getting yourself into, right? Like your audience knows the games better than you do, and you're going to try to make something for them. You're just going to disappoint them.
Yeah, the president, Chesnays, I think is his last name. I'm probably butchering it, but he is a lifelong Atari guy, but not like with the company, but he was a Atari lover, but he also loves money a lot more.
Hey, that's not a bad thing.
He loves two things. He loves his Atari and he loves his money, so it causes problems. Yeah. It kind of causes problems with the company, I think. We'll see. Like I said, it's obviously a better company than it was 5 years ago, but is it a company that can pull itself out of the ashes of its own self-destruction? I don't know.
It would be amazing.
It's odds on.
It will be amazing if it does.
I think you said exactly what it is, though. They have an amazing IP. Their IP range. I don't know if you've ever looked at their. They actually have a list of IPs that Atari still owns. By the way, they don't own as much as many people think they do. Because they they've sold them off.
I know they've
over the
sold
years.
off.
Right.
I'm sure some of it got sold off through all the various
Right.
changing of hands that they did.
But they still have a strong IP list. But the time's running out. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
We're all in our 40s, except. Except for
I'm getting closer.
No, my 40s are in the rearview mirror.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I'd like to think that I'll be able to pass on some of this to my kids. You know, now that I have inexplicably have kids.
Oh, well, it's not. I'm sorry. I hate to say it. It's not terribly inexplicable. I'm sure there's an explanation for it.
For me,
Okay.
not the general process, but for me.
I was about to say, if you're wondering how you had kids, there might be a problem that we need to address first.
We can recommend a few good books on it as well.
Yes,
I got some movies.
there's even one for dummies.
There is. Wow, I should have had that one.
There
Me
is
too.
Sex for Dummies, Orgasms for Dummies, and Faking an Orgasm for Dummies.
Really? Really faking?
Yes.
Wait. Are they for like crash test dummies?
It gotta be. All
All
right.
right.
Off the rails. Let's get back.
Learned something new today.
Yeah.
You always do on this show.
Wander around a bookstore when you have an hour.
All right. So, you did talk about now. This was let's go back down to where we were at. So you were with Atari in those final days of Jaguar, and actually Atari, you worked on a particular game that we kind of like on the Jaguar.
Which is which?
The pinball.
Oh, Ruiner Pinball?
Yeah.
You know, my name is attached to it. I wish I could say I had a lot to do with it, but that game was high voltage software, I believe. That game was largely done when I joined. So I kind of was, sometimes as a producer, you kind of end up being sort of the shepherd of a process, and not quite so much involved in the creative of the process. So Ruiner Pinball was mostly done when I got to it. Yeah, that was a really good one. Jaguar could do 2D like nobody's business. The problem was that everybody was trying to make it do 3D at some point, and so the games that stuck with 2D did great. The games that tried to be 3D tanked, and I could tell you some stories about a couple of different titles there. I don't want to harsh your mellow on Ruiner Pinball, but man, there were some real stinkers. There was games I worked on at Atari that I didn't even put on my resume. At a time when I was like I'd been at Sega for like almost 3 years. I went to Atari for 4 months, right? So imagine young Joe, right? I'm 23
that's gotta
years
be a
old.
disappointment.
I gotta find a job. I gotta put a resume together. I only have so much experience. Do I put Fight for Life on my resume? No, I don't. At that time, I didn't. I'll tell people now, but at the time, I was like, I don't want to have that title attached to my name.
I think you can dedicate one entire show to that.
Fight for Life?
Yeah.
Truth be told, now, I don't know if you can tell from my voice, pull the game or go find a YouTube video. You will hear my voice in that game. I did the voices of several of the characters in there.
Oh, we are still going to have to find a clip of that. It's again, like you said, the Jaguar could do 2D, but at the time it came out, 3D games were becoming popular, and so the developers felt they needed to push that.
Fight for Life. I thought it was Flight for Life.
Who writes the game Flight for Life?
I don't know.
There was a Flight for Life.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
jeez.
flew on the
I kept
helicopter.
hey, just like the last. Oh, I heard.
You really? We're gonna work on your hearing. But yeah, so no, the problem was that, like I said, at the time there were systems doing 3D, so they felt they needed to try to push the 3D, and it just
It wasn't there. Now I did see one demo. There was actually a guy that was a team in Malaysia of all places that was working on like a demolition derby game that did some really good stuff. But I remember seeing this demo. It never turned into a game, but and I don't know if it's out there anywhere. But it was this demo of a top-down overhead space shooter, and the background scrolled normally, but then it had like polygons for these like 3D buildings that drew up from the ground toward the camera, and would, as you flew around, they would angle. So it used a polygon drawing capability in an interesting, like a novel way, right? Like they didn't try to make it like, oh, we're in a 3D space. They tried to make it like, let's take advantage of the 2D hardware with some additional like 3D elements in it that looked good, rather than a bunch of flat polygons everywhere that looked like crap. And it actually was a really compelling demo. It never turned into anything. But that was unfortunate. You see stuff like that, and you're like, man, this has so much potential if they just, played it right. But at that time, as I recall, Jaguar was now PlayStation comes out, and it's got polygons everywhere, and it's like we got to compete with that. The system just didn't have the legs.
Yeah. You got the Tramiels who don't want to spend money on anything.
Yeah,
I love Commodore, but
I will tell you that Larry is my favorite Tramiel brother.
Really?
Yeah, he was cool. Like Larry was pretty interesting cat. I didn't get a chance to hang out with him very much, but of the Tramiels that I ran into, Larry was the coolest.
Jack was not. No,
with her Larry. Jack's the dad, right?
Jack is the dad. Yeah,
Jack.
Jack was not cool.
I never met him. So Sam was running the show at the time, and I just remember that like that Atari Cards meeting. Like Sam was like, "Yeah, Atari Cards," but his idea of focus testing was, did his son like it or not? If his son liked it, it was getting made. If his son didn't like it, probably wasn't getting made.
Ouch.
If this kid only had better taste in games.
Yeah, right. There you go. All right, so again,
I haven't played Atari Cards yet though, so I can't say.
Well, you just got it today, so
just got it.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's not Mario Kart, but it's not bad.
All right, so
All
Joe,
right, then.
Joe, of all the games you've worked on, what was your favorite? I mean, and again, but again, for the audience that's listening right now, just go back and look at all the stuff this guy's done. It is quite the library. So of all of these, what was your favorite?
Well, I'm not quite sure what list you're looking at. A lot of my more recent experiences kind of off the radar. I ended up working for, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Pogo. It's an online web game that's owned by EA website. They have tons of casual games. So I've made like a bunch of different like bingo and match 3 and crossword and you name it. In casual space, I've done a lot. If I had to go back though to like my sort of bread and butter, like where I started, I think it's really a tough question. I got a chance to do some game design early on when I was at Sega. There was a game for the Bonkers cartoon show, and we had a chance to kind of pitch some ideas, and the level inside Bonkers where he pushes the crates around, it's like I had an idea for like remaking Pango.
Oh,
and so that's where that game came from inside of Bonkers. But when I worked for Digital Eclipse, we did it was probably the most fun in terms of like being an actual level designer. We did a Lilo and Stitch game, and I had to do side-scrolling levels. I had to do like a Abe's Odyssey style game that we had to design levels for, and then I had to do a Gyrus style bonus game shooter, and I programmed waves of enemies using polar coordinates, which I'd never, not before and not since. So that was really interesting. That was actually like a really interesting project because it was so diverse, and we're talking a GBA game. Like, that thing had hardly any space at all, and we crammed that thing full of animation, full of really pretty solid gameplay. So that was a really interesting one. And then personally, like I've done a couple projects where it was like, it was just sort of an idea that I kind of, almost on the back of a napkin kind of drew up and turned out pretty well. There's one game that I did that was like a match, like not really match 3 game, but like it's this thing called Stack'em. You can find it on Pogo. and it's like a matching game with these colorful animals, and it kind of had this novel twist on what a match, because at the time everything was bejeweled, everything was swapping gems.
God, yes.
And we did this thing where it was more of like pick up these groups of animals, and you could change the size of the stack you were dragging around, and it was more of like make 5 or more in a row. It had some interesting twists to it. For me, it was fun to just kind of experiment with a different way of doing something that, like, hey, another game does this, but I'm going to do it different. And that's always kind of been my, I don't want to say my calling card, but certainly as I developed into, game designer over the years, you got to know there is some truth in that, like, not everything is original. There is going to be some copying, and you have to be okay with that, but you also have to be able to understand what you're copying and why, how it works together or doesn't, and if you can resolve that or not, right? Like, there's a lot of games out there that are like, we're going to take this system from this thing, it's really cool. We're going to combine it with this system from this other thing, it's also really cool. It's going to be great. And it's like, those two things don't even work together. And that's what you got to watch out for, right? Because that's the kind of stuff where you build something and it just collapses under its own weight of all this, like, novelty. It's not even good. So.
Like the roguelike industry right now.
Yeah, but there
Suffering.
very often you can find that combination of two really.
That's
Exactly.
good fusions
It's like-
all over the place.
And,
There are bad
and
fusions.
it's not to say that you can't find a good fusion, right?
Yeah,
But,
definitely,
like,
there's great
not
ones.
not the two best things, like, combine, like, Fortnite and Candy Crush. It's not going to work.
Oh, no, wait a minute, don't.
Fort Candy is
don't
right on its
rule-
way.
Don't rule it out.
Fort Crush.
It could. I mean,
gonna say.
it could happen. I've been surprised in the past, but, like, if I'm just shooting fish in a barrel right now, I mean, that's the kind of thing you actually would hear that as a pitch.
Candy.
You will hear that as a pitch. It's this plus that. You're like, sounds great on paper, but, like, when the nuts and bolts come together, it just somebody's on metric and somebody's on American. It just doesn't work.
You must build to crush the candy to just shoot the other person.
You're still on this. You're trying to make this work, aren't you?
Yeah,
He's gonna get it next
because
week.
I feel like he's just challenged me. So I gotta find a way,
to make it
try.
work.
Colt says that his birthday's coming up. Hint. So I think he wants Candy Crush. Is that-
Yeah, what's that?
Listen, I've got ideas. I got ideas all day. 5%.
Tom just. I feel like he just challenged me, so therefore I gotta try and
all
find a way.
right. Well, you can work on that.
Don't hurt yourself. You can take some time after the show. Think about it. It's all good.
Hours of crushing it.
All right.
I got
What was
8 hours of work. I can do that.
I mean, again, just so you guys know, I mean, just to be honest, like, just even having the opportunity to kind of, like, do some of this stuff really has been, I hate to sound like cliche about it, right? But I mean, that's the reward in itself. Is like, I'm getting the chance to kind of, like, somebody's paying me to, like, come up with ideas. Like, cool, right? Like,
Yeah, that works.
Doesn't always work out that way, and believe me, there's the funny thing about being a tester was, like, my mom was always like, "Oh, you got your dream job." I'm like, Mom, try sitting down and playing, Make My Video on Sega CD for 12 hours. It's not gonna work. Your brain starts to melt after a while. Like, you don't always just jump right in and get, like, everything you want, right? There's times when it's actual work. But like, I for me, again, I wouldn't pick a different job. I wouldn't pick a different passion, right? Because I mean, that's kind of, and I think sometimes I feel like that's kind of what's missing from some people. And the honest truth is, you don't necessarily have to be passionate to be successful. There's definitely people out there that have built games that they kind of like, oh, I built this game, it did pretty well, and they moved on and went and did something else. It's kind of a hard pill to swallow when you're trying to make that your, bread and butter.
And
But
Somebody just watched it.
and somebody with dumb fucking luck just.
yeah,
Yeah.
but there is also some dumb luck in for me to be able to sit here and say I've been doing this job pretty much for 26 years and still making a living at it.
That's pretty damned awesome, actually. Okay, so you also said you're a collector a little bit. All right.
A little bit.
Favorite home system?
Sorry?
Your favorite retro system?
Super Nintendo.
Oh, good call on that one.
That's an easy one. And believe me, that caused some consternation at Sega. Because I was like, hey, guys, I love the Super Nintendo. That's one of the only companies I've never worked for, that I wanted to work for in games I never worked for. Was Nintendo. But yeah, Super Nintendo, hands down.
Yeah, no, great for the couch co-op games. We, again, there's a...
And the controllers were dead on, too. Which is,
Yeah, they did.
and that time period, even the Genesis, you go back to those controllers, and the Genesis controllers were pretty creepy. They were pretty ass.
But, again,
Pretty ass.
really good one.
But I love the Genesis.
No, so, we're all we're big
I
retro
enjoyed
collectors.
the
I mean,
Genesis
literally,
as well.
there's probably not a system between all of us that we don't have, and even the really obscure and rare ones, we've been very fortunate. We're a fairly
Is
large
that
group.
fortunate? Is it really fortunate?
No, it's not really
Tom? 'Cause
fortunate.
It's fortunate. Oh,
It-
yeah.
As I
Not
just,
to the
as I
podcast.
just bought my new TI multi-cart today. No, it's not fortunate.
Dude,
so.
did you see I got a new TI?
I did. I watched your video.
Thanks.
That's a really nice one, TI.
How
by the way.
many Vectrex among the group?
I myself, just me, own 4.
Wow.
Ralph, how many you own?
I only have one now.
Okay.
Remember, I got the.
That's right. You got rid of your
I
extra
think you
one.
got one of my old ones.
I think I do. Larry has one. So my brother Jimmy has one. So amongst the group, 7.
That's pretty impressive.
We
That's one really big one.
That's probably the one system I don't own that I'd like to own.
Good call on that. We just did you saw the Vectrex machine at the MGC, the full size arcade one we built?
Oh, I did not.
Oh, we took a Vectrex and made it into a full arcade cabinet,
Holy cow.
including
A room had 2.
yeah,
I
I
look at
remember
it,
too,
made 'em, yeah, we had
because
2.
Jason Kopp. So we built a really cool large one with a 19-inch display using Jason's original hack for his monitor, and then we built full-size overlays that were on a mechanical system, so you could swap the overlays. But then it got better. Jason Kopp, this guy's just, when it comes to arcade systems, is just amazing. He built a color Vectrex to show at the show, so he had 2 full-size
That is awesome.
arcade systems.
Wow.
One the classic Vectrex and one a color Vectrex.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, the Vectrex is a cool system. So you got a SNES. What else do you have in your retro collection?
What else do I have? Well, I have
Console-wise.
I have my original Intellivision. It's
Nice.
actually Intellivision 2. But
It's a
I got
prettier
almost, I think every game that I ever bought for that I still have. And
Wow.
of course I got it right when the crash happened. So, like I begged my mom for years for an Atari, never got it. She was like, "Oh, I can afford it in television." And then the market crashed.
Did you
But
do
it
the
got me
mail
a lot.
order
But it
thing?
got me a lot of cheap games, so that was cool.
Yeah. As Toys R Us and everybody's clearing them out.
Did
for
you do
nothing.
the mail order thing? Because Mattel was doing like mail order afterwards. I had a buddy.
No.
Vic was huge into the Intellivision.
No,
and he was
you're
actually
not.
ordering direct from them.
You could order cards directly.
Yeah,
from them?
they had like a little magazine once a month. They come up with a card.
Really?
Yep.
I did not know that. See, I was not in television at the time, so I didn't.
I probably totally have like the release schedule wrong, but
Wow.
essentially they had a magazine. They would send you cards.
All right, so SNES and television. What else you got?
I've got, going back. Let's see, how far back can I go? I think Intellivision might be the oldest console. I think I might have. Oh, actually, I have an Odyssey 2 somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are great systems.
Yeah, where you had it had to fit on your TV. The overlay had to fit on your TV, or you couldn't use it.
Oh wait, no, you're talking the Odyssey.
Oh, the original. That was
That's
the
a
original
lot.
Odyssey.
Yeah.
I take that back.
Yeah, I've got an original Odyssey still.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I have 2 of those now, but that's
Yeah,
one of those weird things.
I almost had one. My buddy might have one. But
That literally was my first home video game.
right. Yeah.
I'm old, so that was that. And not just the first home video game. That was my first home
I'm sure
video
you guys
game.
have all flavor of Pong machines too, right?
Oh God,
Yeah.
yes.
Keep collecting.
So let's see. So let's go back to Odyssey 2, television, regular NES. My wife was a big Atari 5200 fan.
Oh, brave! A brave
Okay, yeah,
choice.
wow.
You
Yeah,
have
that is a brave
5200.
choice.
Super Nintendo, Genesis. God, what else do I have? Saturn. I think I might have a 32X somewhere. If I hit my head a couple times, one will pop out. Saturn.
Hey, you produced one of them, didn't you? A 32X game. Yeah, you did.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
Zaxxon.
wasn't a producer. I was a tester back then. But yeah, we've had I think Zaxxon's
Yeah,
Mother
Blueberry.
Base.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
I keep
Was
trying to
the-
get it at It's one of the few 32X games that I don't have, and I see it all the time, but it's so expensive.
It's not even really that close to Zaxxon, but it was still fun. I mean, I owned a Zaxxon. I owned a Zaxxon arcade for a little while, but it definitely had, it was okay, cool. I could get with that. And then I'm sure I have like so the kids are big on the kids are big on the Wii U. They love that thing. But I definitely have all manner of PlayStations, all manner of Xboxes. But like retro consoles, I'm really a little deficient on the retro side. I really should go back and shore up some holes there.
The thing I'm loving about the retro console scene right now is the multi-carts for them. So
yeah,
it's just there are games you're never going to be able to get your hands on. So the multi-cart market fills that out nicely. I mean, I'm sorry, there are like Mr. Boston for the Vectrex. Even if it became available, who the hell's going to spend $10,000 for a game?
Yeah.
We have Larry with us.
Larry might, but I'm not going to.
I mean, I get it. I get it from a collector standpoint, but yeah, I mean, there's some things that's like, you want to be able to.
At least
you want
check
to be able
out.
to say people can enjoy this thing because it's part of the history, not have to be like, I can only hope I can ever meet one of 10 people or 5, whatever, who actually own this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, that's part of what I do like about the
especially when it's amazing.
The Vectrex world is, when GCE closed down, they did the best thing. Yeah, you can you can release our carts, but they have to be free. You can't charge money for them. Oh, you can't. No, let me rephrase that. You can't make a profit on them. So GCE did a really clever thing.
They said, "Damn it! If we can't make a profit,
nobody's gonna make a profit on it." So all the original GCE games have to be under that licensing, where you cannot sell them for a profit. You can make them you can put them on a multi-cart. You can put them on a regular cart, but you can only charge the cost of your hardware and labor. You can't charge for the software. And the nice thing about the Vectrex community is they police that pretty well too, which I kind of like.
Well, and that's really interesting too, because I mean, some of these cases, like these original companies the rights have expired on some of these things too. Like, who's going to really come after you? So the I'm not seeing this myself as much in home console, but on the arcade side, there was an Exidy multi-board that had all of the Exidy games on it. That basically a guy was just like, he just built a board and he was selling it, and he was like, I'm tired of selling this thing. I don't want to deal with it anymore. So those basically got super rare and became very expensive. But if you can get your hands on one, cool, right?
Yeah.
And then I still haven't set up yet. I probably bought it like a year and a half ago, but I have the multi-board for the Capcom CPS2 games.
Oh, nice.
Some amazing
where you can basically just get you basically just put this thing on one B-board, A-board, B-board combination.
Right.
And then you get a flash drive, plug it in, and you can load up any. And the beautiful thing about that is it's not really emulation. So I have a buddy who's way into emulation, and I get it, right? Like, emulation's cool.
I like emulation.
You get all this stuff. You don't have to. You don't have to worry about it's the game, right? But it's not really the same thing because it's not the same controllers and it's not the same screen. It's like, it simulates scan lines. I'm like, I don't want I want real scan lines. Like,
Thank you. God, yes.
But I get where he's coming from because, you know what? My garage is full of fucking shit right now. It's like hard to put my car in there because I've got 10 arcade games.
But no, it's all the difference in the world.
What's that?
It's all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
And I tried emulation for a while. I really did. And I've got some great emulated systems. I have one of the I'm running the Xbox with CoinOps on it, and CoinOps is gorgeous. But the controller, even with a good full arcade cabinet with a full arcade controller, if it's not the exact same layout as the original game, it just isn't the same. Try playing Tapper when you're not playing it on a Tapper machine, or Asteroids when you're not playing it on a vector monitor, or any number of things. So no, I am 100% with you on that.
Yeah. But what I appreciated about the Capcom one was the CPS2 one was that it's not really. I mean, you're getting the ROMs, but it's actually running on the real hardware, which is pretty amazing.
I'm really glad to hear that because I just got a Capcom. Which one did I just pick up? the Capcom machine. And now that I know I can get a different A board for that, I may look at
Got
that.
that, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I
That's
can.
what we used to do with the Neo Geo. I mean, we just take a Neo Geo board and pop,
Yeah.
use the original
Well,
controller.
that's what
but
you've
we
done.
pop- Yeah.
That's what you've done with your Neo Geo. You've taken the Neo Geo board out of an
I
arcade.
got rid
thing.
of that. I got that all-in-one arcade.
Oh, that's right.
thing.
Okay.
The two controllers
That's
built
right.
into it.
That's right.
You
I
can
forgot.
hook it up to a projector for
I
Christ's
know.
sake.
I know.
Can't take it.
All right. Well,
It's too
listen.
much. All right, we're gonna get into yeah.
Yeah, we're going down. We're going down in the weeds here. All right. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you this evening.
Thank you. Likewise, I really thank you guys. It was nice to meet you at the show. Thanks for remembering who I was when I randomly pinged you out of nowhere.
I thought that was pretty hilarious.
Are you thinking about going again this year? You're a distance away. I know.
When is it?
It'll be the weekend of April, I think 7th, 8th, 9th, or something like that. It's like the one of the first weekends in
Right.
in April, but it's always in April.
We'll see. It would be fun to go back out there. The funny thing was I was out there for an air hockey tournament, which is something we didn't even talk about.
No, we didn't.
No, which
Because
is fine.
they actually get some really good air hockey stuff going out there, but that's a whole other issue.
Yeah. But I was out there for that show or out there for that at the show. But it was cool. So you guys are likewise welcome to come out to California for California Extreme, which is a show that I've gone to and brought my machines to many a time. It's a pretty similar type of setup to that, the Gaming Classic show. And I think it's great. I mean, the fact that there's so many of these, like, you had asked me, I think, earlier on, like, what do I think about retro gaming? Is it still going to be around in 20 years? I think yes, because I think there's a very strong, desire to have the kinds of experiences that you had all those years, because nobody's making them anymore. They're really not. They're really not.
No.
Like, it'd be one thing if a bunch of companies were out there and they were, trying to, like, yeah, hey, we're going to, really kind of go back to these heydays of these, these games that were so good that everybody really, got into and really, came to love. Like, I don't see it. I'm not seeing it. I mean, definitely on a smaller scale, yes, but on a broad scale, I don't see it. And so I think people will continue to want to go to those shows and continue to want to get that experience. And it's unfortunate because we're gonna have to get creative. Somebody's gonna have to figure out a way, because I mean, I've got arcade games sitting right next to me in my office right now. They're 40 years old. Yeah. And they're so picky and finicky, and like, I mean, in some ways they're easy to deal with. In some ways it's like, this shit breaks. You can't just go get another one, right? You can't just go manufacture some of this stuff. So, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how it develops. But I do think in 20 years we are still gonna be talking about this stuff, and I think people are still gonna want it.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna probably be playing the same machines we've been playing now. That's more my concern. You're right. You're like us. You keep this stuff going.
Yeah.
40-year-old arcade games. I mean, we've got them here, and we just, we keep preparing them. There will come a day then, where it gets more and more difficult.
Well, I mean, there's a new wave of hardware coming out too. I mean, you've got ColecoVision. There's a remake console coming out of that. It's actual ColecoVision. It runs the cartridges.
Yeah.
Intellivision has the same reboot coming, and that's got actual Intellivision people on it.
I know, which is kind of cool.
That's kind of weird, right? But that's not. I said it the wrong way. That's weird, but that's weird in a good way. So it's you'll have these, but the cartridges. Well, there's repros, I guess.
Well,
it's never gonna be the same.
For me, I could be so lucky to be around in 20 years to find out, but it's gonna be interesting to watch.
Well, I hope you're around in 20 years, and I hope I'm around in 20 years too, because I got a few years on you. So let's not rush this. All right.
No, definitely not.
One more time, I'd like to thank you for being on the show tonight. And you are again?
Thank you.
What
was that?
Give your name one more time so people know who to look up.
Joe Cain. I'm sorry, I don't have any like awesome social media handles to give you, or Facebook pages, or Instagrams to go to. I'm kind of a crusty old nut that way, but
be a crusty old nut. But you guys, if you get a chance, look up his catalog of work. It is quite the catalog. All right, so we got a few announcements to do.
We got to give a shout out to Lionheart Racing.
By the way, hi George.
Hey George, he's been out there.
Yeah, he's been talking to us.
Been representing. You can check those guys out in the top right corner of our website. www.guysgamesandbeer.net. Remember that top right corner. Can I say it one more time?
Yeah, say it one more time, Rob.
The top right corner of, boy, we push product. Let me tell you.
Really
do we ever? Huh?
All right, so where else can they find us, Rob?
Well, at least it's not back and to the left.
Back to the left.
Back
and
to the left. All right, Rob. Where
I'm
else
getting
can they find us?
sidetracked. All right, we're gonna be at Gamehole Con.
Yeah, that's
Coming up soon.
That's only 3 weeks away, dude.
Yeah, we're gonna be at Gamehole Con. There is going to be the full mech battalion out there.
Yeah.
What do we got now?
Steel Battalion, 10 rigs.
Yeah, but 10 rigs, right?
We're
10
running-
rigs.
10
rigs are gonna be there.
You can run 10 rigs.
So we're gonna have them wired all together. It's pretty much booked, but you might be able to sneak in. So keep an eye on it. 'Cause somebody might get sick, or you can hurt somebody out.
Yeah, if you have not signed up for if you have not registered for Gamehole, get online, register for Gamehole. It's an amazing convention. Again, it's mainly tabletop gaming, but they have a few other cool things there. A lot of
if you're not into tabletop gaming, they'll convert you.
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat. This place is amazing. I cannot tell people enough how this is going to be the next Gen Con, and it's getting there faster than Gen Con ever did. I went to Gen Con back in the 70s. Believe me, Gen Con took a long time to get to where it's at now.
And now it's kind of like Comic-Con.
Yeah, I know. We won't go. Stop now. But Gamehole Con, seriously.
You are so lucky we didn't license
this is for the real gamer in you. All right, what else? Where else can they find us, Rob?
Oh, what? You want to talk about Twitter?
I want to talk about Twitter. You know why? You know why?
I know why. I bet you're going to give away some games.
It's entirely possible, Rob.
At Guys Games Beer. There's no and in there. You know why? Because Twitter's cheap with the letters. They're cheap. They're cheap jerks.
That's right. So tomorrow we'll be giving away another indie game. So check us out tomorrow. That's for those of you who are listening to the podcast. When it drops, too late. You've missed the game. You should always know that I almost always give away a game the day after we do the live show. So that's Wednesdays for those of you who aren't paying attention. So Wednesdays we usually give away at least one free indie game on the Twitter. So check it out.
Finally, crap is always going down on our Facebook account. Oh, it was a mess this week. It was a bleeding mess this week.
In the best way.
It was in the best way. That's www.facebook.com/guysgamesandbeer. Well, thank you guys all very much, and I want to thank you so much for coming on, Joe.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me. If you guys ever want to pick my brain on some other stuff again, just let me know.
We'd love to. Joe, thank you again.
Appreciate it.
Have a great evening.
Guys.
All right, guys.
All
Take
right.
care.
And to the rest of you in the audience, goodbye. Been a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we are moments away from
being out.
There we go. It happens.
Good interview.
Yeah.
This guy was good. You know, he's the kind of, I like those kind of interviews. He's the kind of guy you just got him going, and he just went and went.
That's what I was like.
Perfect.
No, that was perfect.
It was
That's
I'm
perfect.
just like,
It's
I could
sometimes-
say something on him,
But he's going.
But I feel like if I were, it would interrupt.
You're gonna
where
lose
he's
something.
going.
No, you're right. I love it when I love
just
when
let
they
him-
get an interview where they've got what they want to say and they're good. And a good interview. I like this.
Very seldom do you see somebody who isn't doing a lot of interviews either that is that good at.
Yeah, he was really good at